And this leads to the second big problem, which is debt has gotten to the point where it's expected. How can you be fearful or scared of something that you've now just gotten so comfortable that it's just expected for everyone?
Yeah, taking on debt right now is the new normal, and this is a dangerous assumption. And for those that are in debt, this is a problem that's not actually getting better, it's getting worse. 35% of folks say that they're in the most debt they've ever been in. So it's not like, oh, I used to be in debt and things are getting better. No, it's I started in debt and my debt situation is actually continuing to get worse.
Well, let's dive deeper into the problem, because I do think that this is not all by accident. It's because we're actually being pushed to consume more. If you think about the proliferation of buy now, pay later,
it's huge.
Using the fear of missing out as an emotional tool to push you to consume more is epidemic everywhere.
The marketing industry in itself is over a $500 billion industry that is figuring out how can I get into your wallet, into your back pocket, how can I collect your eyeball so that ultimately I can collect your dollars. You have to be aware that technically the consumption system is rigged against you. They care more about money flowing out of your pocket than money flowing into your portfolio, and you need to be aware of that.
Well, and this is kind of, it's turned into an issue where, and I'm going to use the air quotes, good debt. But really what in the past historically is acceptable debt, whether it's the student loan debt, whether it's buying your first car so you can get to your job, whether it's buying a house. These things, because of social media as well as using the manipulation or the industry of pushing consumption, is now these things that were acceptable have been really turned into a Frankenstein version of debt products that lock you down, that really take away all oxygen from your wealth building journey.
Well, you mentioned automobiles, Brian. We know that right now the average new car payment in this country is $740 over 68 months. The average American is buying a car and they have a car payment $740, and they're paying that over 68 months. I would argue that Americans in general are over consuming on automobiles.
Well, especially when you lay that next to what we say is acceptable. I'm not willing to use the word good, but acceptable. I still believe paying cash for vehicles is the ideal, but I would be a hypocrite myself if I said pay cash and don't do anything else, because my first job out of school, I needed reliable transportation. Didn't have enough. I didn't have any cash when I came out of college, so I had to go finance the first car. So we wanted to kind of do a little bit of a case study. If we know that the typical American is spending $740 a month over 68 months, I'll tell you, that is almost twice as much as what we say is acceptable, which is the 23-8 rule. So we said, hey, if you put down 20%, finance it no more than 3 years, and no more than 8% of your income, let's take like a Toyota Corolla.
It's a great starter car.
Where you put down 20%, 36 months, even if you're buying a brand new one, right now the car payment, even if it's paid off in 3 months, $561.
Very different than $740.
Now, look, that's still expensive. I'm not trying to discount, because we are, and interest rates are high. You know, inflation has caused everything to cost a little bit more. But even if you can't afford, you could save $180 a month. And here's what's even better. It's the same decision I made when I graduated college. You know what's better than a brand new Corolla when you don't have cash to pay for it? A used Corolla, and that could make those payments even lower.
Another problem when it comes to debt is that we are choosing an all of the above approach. I want to get all the different kinds of debts. I'll have the mortgage debt and the credit card debt and the student loan debt and the auto debt. You need to recognize that all of these things can compound to work against you. Even with our guidelines, we don't want you to have all these different types of debt. When you add up all of the debt payments you have across all of the money that you've borrowed across your entire financial life, it should not exceed 35% of your gross income. And if you find yourself in the place where you're getting close to that, maybe now is not the time to go buy that new car. Maybe you have to figure out some alternative means to get your debt load down, because once your debt gets that high, compound interest begins to work aggressively against your future wealth building potential.
Yeah, I mean, you're having to work twice as hard. I mean, it really is one of those things where time, you can't get more of it. I don't, you know, you always, if you need more income, you can take on an extra shift. You can take a gig economy job. If you need more money, you can also cut down spending. What you cannot do is you never can get more time back.
exactly
Once
right.
it's gone, it's gone. And I feel like people don't realize that when you lose that time, that's the time your money could grow. Plus, every dollar of debt you take on, that's money you have to pay back.
That's right.
So it really is a twice as hard moment that you have to work twice as hard to get back to even, and then twice as hard to overcome the time that you've now lost out on.
There was a survey done by Northwestern Mutual, their planning and progress study, and they found that those folks in their survey that are in personal debt reported spending 30% of their income on debt payments. 30% of their household income was going to debt. Well, just like you said, when you are in debt, your money is having to work twice as hard as it would have to otherwise. If instead you didn't have that debt, and if instead you could save, and maybe you don't hit the 25% saving number, maybe you're just able to save 15%. If you just look at the median household income in this country, which is $74,500, and you just saved 15% of that amount over 30 years, and we said on average you can earn 8% investing those dollars, that 15% saved over a 30-year time period can turn into $1.4 million. So you can choose. I either want to pay down stuff that I've already bought, or I want to have my dollars working for me, building towards a more beautiful tomorrow. That's the way you need to think about debt when you approach how you're accumulating it through time.
I think it's so interesting because we were just on the car section. The car payments for 68 months are $740. This, if you actually do the math on it, it's $932 a month.
Yeah, that's not
you
far
realize
off.
most people are so close to this millionaire status, but they're driving away from that success and that wealth. So guys, it's these small type of decisions. This is why, if you can understand that, how do you do it better is where you ought to be pivoting your discussion. Treat that debt. I've already told you it's dangerous. How about it's chainsaw dangerous? Yes, it's a very effective tool, but one slip, one not respecting this tool that you're using, and it literally can dismember you. Treat it effectively and accordingly so that you don't make mistakes.
And understand the differences in debt. You should treat all debt like a chainsaw, but high interest debt, credit card debt, consumer loan debt, furniture debt, store debt, any of these super high interest debt, you have to get out of that as fast as you can, because compound interest can be your absolute fiercest ally or your scariest adversary. And you get to choose. High interest debt is working against you. So if you have it on your balance sheet, figure out a strategy to get out of it as quickly as possible.
And then also, don't forget the tool of building an emergency reserve. That way you can avoid the desperate decisions. You know, if you look at our financial order of operations, go to moneyguy.com/resources. Cash actually gets two steps. It gets step one for deductibles covered, your highest deductible covered, and step 4, which is emergency reserves. As you can tell, the financial order of operations is actually a plan to do and handle every dollar better